to fulfill the obligations of paying school fees within this period. And I think that would also really be able to sort of improve on the kind of results West Nile sub-region will be in position to give out there. What do you think about that?
Farsi, based on the results of the mock, the PLE mock that has been released by Arua Central Division, both at the city level and also at the regional level, because I remember very well they started at the regional level before sloping to Arua Central, Arua City. Particularly talking about the result of Arua Central Division, fortunately or unfortunately, in most cases when you talk about the exams for entire region of West Nile, as this time taking particularly Arua City, most of the results have been dominated by the schools that are in urban areas. I don't know why it is happening like that, because you go to these rural schools, their results are always very alarming in terms of negativity. But you talk about some of the schools that are always established in the city areas, or in the urban areas, they are always the ones, their results are always the ones in terms of positivity, raising the flags of some of these districts, some of these cities. Now, what does it mean to the rest of the schools that are in rural areas? Yes, we may say that, okay, schools, particularly this time, taking Arua City alone, schools in Arua Central Division, they are doing very well. They have registered so many first graders. Now, the question goes back to the stakeholders, goes to the people, the eyes of the government, it goes back to the candidates themselves, and also the parents. How can they be able to also uplift the standard of the results in the rural areas? That is one thing, of course, I'm looking forward into, because that is the reason as to why I was saying that it might be fortunate or as unfortunate for some of the candidates that are studying from rural areas. But to me, I need to appreciate, I need to congratulate the entire Central Division for the brilliant thing they have done as far as the mock results are concerned, because that is where you are going to start evaluating your candidates, how they will be performing in the final exams. Obviously, if you perform poorly in mock at the end of the year, you are
still talking about these performances, based on one observation was that the private schools were able to perform better than government schools. But of course, the best candidate, of one of whom was, actually I should say the best candidate in these examinations, was a pupil of Awindere Primary School, which is a government-aided school. So what message is that sending? You can still pass from anywhere. That is a message that is clearly here, that you can pass from anywhere. Because if somebody from Awindere Primary can be able to score 5, 6, and 4 in these examinations, that means it is possible. But the overall best was a private school, that is Queens and Kings Primary and Nursery School, which is our neighbor here, and they did perform very well in this examination. But one of the issues that also very much featured, Benson, which I feel I should be letting you know of, is private schools taking some of their learners to be registered under what we call the rural schools. You're talking about how rural schools are performing, but we have seen a scenario which was raised by the inspector of schools that the private schools are now using the public schools as a dumping site for their students who have not made it. I do not want to say the dull students, but those who have not also excelled their limits. And that is why they remove them and take them to those urban schools and only register the very few, what we call cream de la cream. And at the end of the day, when the results come out, they are the ones celebrating that we have done this, we have excelled in this. Just because they registered a very few portion of candidates, taking the majority to be registered in the urban, in the rural schools. And at the end of the day, these would not perform very well. We have seen that scenario coming out, and it is only contributing. And in most cases, Benson, the private schools have also been pinned by the public schools for stealing their brilliant students and pupils as well in there, because most of the times you have had this scenario. I used to ask myself, way back when I was in primary, because entirely I went to a UP school, that's at Arua Primary School, we were performing very well. We used to compete with some of these private schools, and most of the best candidates also the then district and the municipality. In most cases, we had candidates who could compete and who could actually beat. But today, this has gone down. I was asking myself, why is this happening? I went to the teachers and asked them, why are the public schools not performing? They're actually pinning private schools. That these private schools have agents, most especially teachers, who are there to support brilliant learners. And they take these learners and register these learners to sit for them. And that is really one issue which I feel we need to talk about this morning. Based on how can we address this matter, and what do you think can be done to avert such scenarios?
Actually, you have mentioned around 2 or 3 things here. First of all, some of the private schools spotting some of the brilliant schools from some of the rural public schools. and bringing them in private schools.
And then taking those ones.
And also dumping those ones whom they think that they are not brave, they are not wise enough to pass in their schools. First of all, you need to ask yourself outside there, why is it happening? Once you ask yourself like that, it will be very easy for you to come up with the solutions. It is very true that of late public schools, they are not performing. This time talking about the primary schools, they are not performing. At least the public schools in the secondary sector, for them they can compete very well with the private schools. Even to me, I feel that private schools in secondary, they still perform better than the private schools. For example, you take the whole of West Nile region. You look at St. Joseph's College Ombate, which is a public school. You talk about Edofe Girls. You talk about Moni Girls. You talk about the Republic. Is there any private secondary school you have seen in the entire region? Yes, they have a competitor.
That is Ushindi, which is upcoming.
Ushindi, but still, you talk about the academics in the whole of region. Ushindi can still not compete with
Ombate. Looking at all these issues, sorry to cut it short, I feel there's really a lot more that we need to do to make sure that we bridge the competition that is between the private and public schools.
So
how can we address that?
I was just comparing now primary schools with now secondary schools. That means in secondary schools, it is not all that very bad, because we have seen public schools still competing very well. They are still ahead of the private schools. Now the problem has been majorly in primary schools. How can we be able to solve that one? For me, I remember very well when we were in primary one, general, the entire primary life, private schools, they don't used to be very many like this. And also, how can we be able to address the whole matter? That's actually what we are looking forward into. It is not one person's role, it's not one stakeholder's role. I think it cuts across. First of all, the learners themselves. Second is the parents. Third is, of course, the government together with the teachers. I think we still need to keep the spirit that the learners can still perform very well in public schools. How can we be able to instill the spirit amidst ourselves? That means the parents themselves, of course, will have to believe in the public schools. And also the same thing goes into the hands of the teachers. They will have to now strategize, improve on how they are actually lecturing these learners. And the third thing, of course, also goes into the hands of the government representatives. Because in some of the public schools, we have seen, more especially the structures have become dilapidated, and the government, of course, cannot take that initiative in some of the schools to monitor if the teachings are going on so well, if the lecturings are going on so well. I think if the stakeholders can come together and sit, I think they can be able to address the matter. Even some of the, I'm not trying to demoralize them, I'm not trying to be against them. Some of the private schools, the way like just a person can come from nowhere. Tomorrow, you may even hear that tomorrow there is a private school that has been established. It starts from nursery section up to P2. And then next year it has gone to that P7. I think government, of course, will have to intervene
to regulate do you think regulation of these operations of these private schools is quite good? Do you think it will work?
I think there has to be some standards. That of course will have to be.
You know, Benson private schools have one duty for which they are formed. First of all, it is business. This is somebody's business, and that is where if you move to these schools, as a teacher, if you're not serious, they will fire you. But in government schools, we have seen scenarios where during daytime the teacher is busy doing other activities, which is a different case from what's happening in the private schools.
To me, sometimes...
and yet most of the teachers who are in the private sector are willing to work for government.
Yes, I understand, because you see sometimes a teacher retiring from government school now can even still teach in a in private schools. Now I've been asking myself, government has set a certain standard of the year, a limit. Teachers, mostly theirs is 60 years. How comes that if the government is saying that now it's not government saying because it has already been implemented. Yeah, it has already been implemented. A teacher is retired at 60 years from public schools, from a public school, let me say like that. Now, how comes that a teacher that is already 60, that has already retired, is again going to teach in private schools? So some of these things, of course, we need to analyze them. if the government is saying that a teacher, of course, will have to retire at the age of 60.
So in other words, what you're trying to say is they should retire both from private sector and government? But most cases, Benson, we have seen the owners of these private schools, most especially who have education background, are teachers who have taught in public schools.
And also, first, one thing I also wanted to add was the issue of revenue. You know, when something is called a private entity or as private institution, money works. That is why we are seeing private schools of late, they are very rampant.
It's business.
Even it's business. Sometimes the business comes with so many things. You know, when a private entity is established, it gives room for the failure of a public entity. Of late, they are rampant. They are even surpassing the number of public schools. So that's the reason as to why I was saying that the government, of course, will have to come up with some regulations to see that they minimize the number of. I think it is a business, and you do it at provided you have the cash, you can be able to provide the revenue.
Benson, for you to establish a school, the procedures are supposed to undergo. First of all, government is supposed to assess the environment where this school is going to be established. Then secondly, the personnel that are going to be working in this school are supposed to be checked by government. That is before getting license. But sometimes also we do understand some of these schools operate without licenses. Last year I had an opportunity of interacting with the teachers who are under private schools. This issue very much featured. And I was able to see officials from also the Education Department of Arua City giving this warning to those schools that are established without prior also really effects, to also really make sure they also impact on academic also progress of these schools. We did see them also really having this warning. And really, Benson, indeed what you said is true, that most of these schools are open for business. And if you're opening up a business, in business definitely you have to stand above everyone for people to buy your products. You have to do something that is extraordinary. In this case, private schools, what they do extraordinarily is academic performance. And what does that mean to the public schools? Most parents, most especially those who have the monies, who have the powers, will not want to see their children go to government schools because people do have negative perception about government issues. Not only education, move the health facilities, hospitals. How many people are going to these government hospitals? People are undertaking the government health facilities after private health facilities failing. This is indeed a challenge which I feel government should be able to solely work on and address this concern, and that would also, at the end of the day, enable a favorable competition environment where that is for both private and public schools.
And first, also one thing I've been observing ever since I got to know about the private schools is that both from primary sector and also secondary sector, they cannot be able to keep the consistency up to the end. When we were teenagers, we used to know about some of the best performing private schools. Most especially in primary.
They have died.
They have died. Like Hominy Dove.
It is still around.
It is around. Are they performing now very well? No. You talk about Esther generation. They are trying, but there are so many of them, but their performances, of course, they have gone very low.
Benson, today talking about the private schools, yes, indeed, sometimes also the competition on them is overwhelming because they have a lot of responsibilities. Imagine paying all those teachers. Unlike government, where people get government funds, it is entirely the duty of you getting the money out of the parents to do the school fees, and everything you do at the school is because of the money that school is paid in form of school fees. But many times also where the parents don't pay the money, it becomes indeed a great challenge where the private schools are also really limited. Sometimes also really put myself in that shoe and you get to realize that indeed they're going through a lot. And that is why during COVID-19 many of the schools died and they were able to solely ask for help from government, which update has never come. And government promised also the private schools a bailout. But of course, the money was not given to them up to date. And that is where, Benson, where I feel also really it is very much important for us to sort of understand some of the pain, also some of the, maybe some of the private schools are going through. Yes, you mentioned some of the schools that they did die. We have seen schools that were at primary and secondary level. Today they have died. Everest is one of them. Today the schools are nowhere to be seen. We had schools, very many who have also who had been established, but sometimes it is because these businesses are established on individuals.
First, it is true we are not trying to be against any of the sector, whether it being a private institution or as a government institution, because we are all aware that development is all about playing with the mixer. private entities, they play their roles, and also government entities, they play their roles. What we are trying to analyze here is how can we be able to strategize it very well to see that the development is balanced, both in the government sector and also in the private sector. That is actually the analysis we are trying to come up with.
All right, Benson, thank you so much. And that is where we are going to be pausing with the discussions for now, and we are yet running for a short commercial break. My name is Farish Majid, and I'm still together with Michael, that is Oracle Benson Pastore. And the issue we have just been analyzing is the performance competition that is between private and public schools. How is the ratio and how are they competing? Is the competition favorable? You can share your thoughts and opinions on our comment section. For those of you watching us online, I will be in position definitely to go through some of those comments. But for now, we are taking a short commercial break that will be ushering us into more of the discussions later on.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region. Kylian Mbappe! Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, the team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium, Channel 259 and Channel 246. Starting this August 15th. Subscribe to Star Times Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. Star Times Football and Limited Passion. West Nile TV, lighting up the region. West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Kylian Mbappe!
Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, a team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium, Channel 259 and Channel 246. Starting this August 15th. Subscribe to StarTimes Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. StarTimes Football and limited passion. West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back from the short commercial break. We are back into this hour, 30 minutes already after 8 o'clock, and this is where we're going to be still looking at the issue of the results. Earlier on, we are analyzing the issues of the performance gap that is there between the private and the public schools. And Benson, indeed, we elaborately also really talked about that. And now to summarize the entire discussions, what's the way forward? How can the government schools move to the level of competing with the private schools at primary level? Because at secondary level, at least we have seen the gap is not far-fetched, but the gap is rather far-fetched at primary level. Many times, many of the parents feel foundation is good at private schools. We have seen this happening. It's a common belief which many parents have, most especially in the city here. They feel their children have to study from private schools from P1, from nursery up to at least P4, and then that is when they can now have trust of transporting these learners. Public schools, how can we change that mentality? What can the schools do exactly to make sure this changes?
First, picking it from where you have just left, now they have also come up with another initiative. They have taken another step forward. These days, more especially in the secondary sector, parents, they feel that parents that are from different sub-districts or sub-cities, these days they feel that for your child to perform very well, you need to leave aside the issue of the private. They feel that best schools also in the city area, that's in Kampala. You find that a child has finished primary 7 in a certain district or in a certain area generally. The parent will feel that for the child to perform very well in secondary, the parent will sell maybe some of the properties as maybe a piece of land and transport the child to study. That's in Kampala. I think that is another mentality which of course will have to be eliminated among the stakeholders, because wherever you are coming from, wherever your child finished P7 from, the child can still perform very well in secondary in that particular area. It's not all about having that mentality. A child who has finished primary 7 from a certain area can actually deliver very well in secondary sector in Kampala. That is the latest observation had been seen with most of the parents. Like you have said, it's not one person's role. I think it's a mentality whereby so many of these stakeholders will have to be lectured about it.
Talking about all these stakeholders, Benson, I feel each and everyone has to do something when it comes to bridging that gap.
Yeah, it's true.
The schools have something to do in terms of uplifting their performances, working hard to also make sure the learners excel, so that the parents have the trust in the schools is very much key. And government has to also really enroll more teachers to address the teacher ratio. Recently, we had the World Teachers Day. The issue of the teacher to learner ratio featured. Initially, the teacher to ratio is supposed to not be far-fetched, but today we are seeing it a bit high. How can we address that is really also what matters, because if you look at the UP schools, back then, when we were in UP schools, you realize the numbers were overwhelming, where we are over 1,000, over 2,000, and we have very few teachers, and the number of teachers in these schools are a bit countable. So how will this exactly impact when academic also performance is concerned? Because for a learner who is not concentrating, one who is in class and teacher is not noticing him or her will definitely miss out. So I think it's really quite good for us to be talking about this learner ratio, so which government must be able to address by, first of all, employing more teachers to address that. Then that will also make sure that the members of the public also have trust in public schools. And then the parents paying the UPE is not all enough. Recently, I was in Terego, in one of the sub-counties. This issue actually featured where parents feel the government has given them UPE. Now that is it. There's no duty. The schools are supposed to be also really asking. There's no way the schools should ask for some money from them, because the government is giving everything. But how much are the schools getting when it comes to these grants? How much, this money, how much is it? Because if you look at all this, the competition grants, how much are the schools receiving them? You realize the schools are also struggling and also really suffering to make ends meet in there, and that also really, at the end of the day, has its own repercussions. What about teacher salaries? how much are these teachers in government schools earning? Let's look at it. How much money is government paying them? At the end of the day, if the money is not sufficient, we have seen the teachers resorting to border work. We have seen teachers doing other jobs. We have seen when teachers abandon the teaching career. Today we have teachers who are abroad doing med work. Just because the money government is allocating to them is not enough. So I think as stakeholders, we all have a role to play to bridge that gap because, first of all, as a learner in private schools and government schools, we can still compete. I gave you an example of the best learner in these mock results was people from Awindiri Primary. This is a government-aided school where we thought even such a result wouldn't come from. Though the best school was Kings and Queens, which is a private school, but the best learner was, of course, from a private school. So I think it is still time that we can still be able to bridge the gap between the private and public schools. That would also, at the end of the day, improve on the performances.
First, one thing I've just picked from your analysis is about the quality of the teachers you have just been analyzing. Yes, we may talk about public schools as government-aided schools. You go deep in the villages, some of the villages we have in the entire country, you look at the quality of the structures in some of these government-aided schools, leave that one aside, and also you look at the standard of the teachers, their level of qualifications. First, it is really very alarming. We are just seeing, people are just looking at the government-aided schools within the urban centers, whereas neighboring the urban centers. But you go, let me give you an example with some of the sub-counties like Zia, all over the country. You go to Yumbe, there are some schools that are very deep from the villages. Some of the learners, they are studying under the trees, and also you look at the quality of the teachers and also the time they give to teach these people. Like a teacher will first go for garden work, will come to class at his or her own time.
What about those who first go and take some small cold drink, then they go to class? A scenario which was at Onjevu, which is indeed regrettable. So it is true. Where a teacher had to be paraded, which is really quite embarrassing. Yeah, because we don't expect you to be going through that.
And these are some of
the... But by the one observation also really with the private schools is that most of them do not have the qualified teachers. But we see them... We see them excelling. One, I believe, is because of dedication. Second, is because of pressure. And that is the reason as to why we always see teachers who are qualified, teaching in the private sector, are always struggling to enter government. That is the reason because funding is not also stable. And the government is paying their monies. It means that government teachers also really teaching government are getting their money on time. And they're also really getting their NSF and other benefits. But we don't see them putting a lot of emphasis. So I think there's really a challenge that we need to identify and also address. That would also make sure that the performance of the learners in this region come 2025 will be addressed, and we shall be seeing at least the gap being bridged. So I think that is quite important for us to be also really putting that discussion aside. Now talking about Mpox, we have seen one death registered, where the suspected cases and confirmed cases as well have risen to about 123 in the country, with Adjumani district having one case being registered. Benson, Mpox is still a great challenge, and we are bordering neighboring DRC, where the cases are first registered from, and history has it that this disease was first detected from actually this neighboring country. And today when we talk about Mpox, according to a report from World Health Organization, most of the cases are actually being registered from the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is not very far from us. And today we have a number of porous border points with the neighboring country in there, where today we have Ugandans who trade in DRC, and then we have Congolese who trade in Uganda, and they move freely. And that means we need to talk about the risk of this disease. First of all, this is a disease that has its symptoms where people develop patches, people develop rashes, and in what we usually call ngulua. These are the signs and symptoms of Mpox, and
including headaches
and many other symptoms of Mpox in there. But today, when you talk about Mpox, somebody could be hearing the word for the very first time. And today, we also do understand that it's not longer called monkeypox, but rather it is called Mpox. Because those days, people used to call it monkeypox, but today, health officials are saying it is actually called Mpox, which is a virus disease which also can lead to death. One case has now been registered, one death, and many causes of Mpox actually in there. What do you think about this disease, and how do you think we can be able to curtail the spread of this disease in other areas?
First of all, you look at this disease called Mpox. It is very, very dangerous. it can be spread in different ways. You have already mentioned some of the signs and symptoms. Now, I think the biggest thing we need to talk about is how can we be able to prevent it from spreading is one thing. Of course, if you are outside there, will want to hear from us. Though we are not health personnel, but we are journalists, we cut across anything we can give you. So believe in what we are giving you. First, it's true. I've been asking myself each and every day, whenever there is a deadly disease that is in the country, always the origin is said to be from our neighboring country, that's DRC. Why is it always from Democratic Republic of the Congo? Is one thing, of course, we need to ask ourselves. You have just mentioned that it's believed to have originated from DRC, which is very true. You talk about Ebola, always from that side. So many of them, but this time we are talking about what we call mpox. How can we be able to prevent it from spreading is one thing, of course, we need to look at.
The disease actually, according to health experts, can be controlled through various ways. First of all, avoiding close contacts, just like COVID-19. Handshakes are not also a part of this disease. And then secondly, sanitizing places that a person who is suspected to have also had this disease also is very much important. And washing hands using clean water and soap. And above all, if you have the symptoms, rushing to the nearest medical facility for urgent checkup is very much crucial, and that will also help the further spread of this disease be contained, because if you talk about this mpox, it is actually a killer disease. And above all, Benson, there's one way this disease is actually more dangerous than HIV, because however much you try controlling yourself, maybe through putting on condom, health experts say you can still get mpox, because the signs and mpox are very much common around the private parts. Definitely there are rashes in there, because if you look at it, there are usually rashes around the private parts. So I think for those who love having multiple sex partners, you risk contracting this disease. Therefore, you must desist from that practice. You must be very much vigilant and very much cautious, because mpox is indeed a killer disease. And now that as a country, we have registered the first death of mpox. And it means that the risk is still there, and that means we need to do something about it. Because recently I had an opportunity of interacting with the officials of Minister of Health, Benson. This disease actually came in there. That means we need to let people know of the risk of contracting this disease, because somebody may say, me, I'm a mafia, I can't do anything, I don't fear mpox.
There is no mafia when it comes to disease. And also one key point I think we need to emphasize is all about you need to control yourself when it comes to movement. And the disease, actually, the base is in Congo, and we have business operators, businessmen and businesswomen who are operating in these two countries. Some of our Ugandans, they are moving to DRC, others are coming from DRC to our country. Now, I think this one will go into the hands of the business operators together with the government officials of the two countries. They need to now gather the border points to see how they can be able to control it. Because
yes, Benson, talking about government, indeed the officials now, according to information we did gather, who are voluntarily checking people solely at the entry points, checking the temperatures, because just like COVID-19, also your temperatures are accessed. And also you are tested for what we call mpox at the entry points, but we have a number of border points. Benson, let's talk about smuggling. How many Ugandans are entering illegally into the country? How many Congolese are entering illegally into the country? So I think it's really high time for us to also devise means and to make sure that these uncontrolled movements are also really controlled. Because if we don't control these movements, then we are going to still be seeing ourselves at risk. And that is where we now expect the public to understand that indeed mpox is still a great concern, and therefore we need to work towards averting this disease.
And first, this one brings me to the other point I raised. Mostly when it comes to deadly diseases, the origin in most cases is said to be from DRC. Why is it so?
You know, it goes back to health behavior, the behavior of the people. Because if you look at mpox, just like Ebola, with mpox, the worst scenario is that it has no particular cause that this is what causes mpox. But Ebola, you will talk about people eating monkeys, people eating bats and those other items. But indeed, mpox also really has no particular cause. The investigations to the matter are still being done, and no particular cause. Or maybe, let's say, if you eat this animal, you get mpox. It's not clear. The information is not clear. and that is what health experts are already moving towards. So, Benson,
Is
if you look at our neighboring country,
is it because if you look at the people from our neighboring country, the Congolese, their health behavior is still is still below the bar line?
Yes, of course, I would say yes. I would say yes, and that is where, if you look at behavior change, and
very true.
Definitely, many times also where they've not hit these calls of health experts, we find it a challenge. So I think it's really high time that we sensitize the locals and expect now each and every partner, each and every stakeholder to also really go back and we sensitize our communities, not only those across borders. Even locally, we have to do this. Looking at also people who are residing along the border points, we need to go back and still tell them that if you don't do this and that, you will get this disease. And these are the dangers of you contracting this disease. So I think it will also really enable people to change their behaviors, that is to health. And many times, Benson, it also becomes a concern where one person is sick. You know, during COVID-19, when people were being tested, others were running away, even in Uganda here. So I think that is where the behavior change also really becomes very, very much important. Adoption to that communication is really quite good. So I think there's really a lot more that we need to do, me and you, to make sure that people buy the ideas and people accept what we're telling them, that if you have symptoms, first of all, rashes is a symptom of mpox. It is a clear sign. Then temperatures, if you have them, it's a sign. Headache, vomiting, these are all signs of mpox. So I think if you have any of these signs, then it is high time that you move to the nearest health facility for testings. Not all health facilities are empowered, but you will be referred to a rural regional referral hospital where the director, that is Alex Andemo, of course, did confirm that they are ready to also make sure that they are in position to also make sure that they deal with mpox care.
Yeah.
Recently, we had one in Alur sub-region where there was a scare, but was tested. Unfortunately enough, it went negative. So I think you may also be having these symptoms, but it may not necessarily be mpox. Yeah. So it is high time.
The fact is, based on the analysis you have just given, it looks minor when it has not come into your area. But once you have heard, or you have seen that it is already in your area, that's when people, you know, Africans, for them, they believe by seeing, or else they believe in seeing. Once they have not seen something, they have not, they are just hearing about it, they cannot bother about it. But we are trying to give you preventive measures. We are trying to give you analysis about the whole disease called mpox. I think if you can take it wisely, of course we can be able to prevent it. But if you still say that, if you still think that for us we're okay in our area, we are still okay, we are just hearing about it, we have not seen it, it's all upon you. What we can only say is we are actually educating you. We are actually lecturing you on how we can be able to prevent the disease from becoming rampant. That is actually the analysis we are trying to give you. First, this one brings us to, I don't know if we still have much discussion about it. This one now brings us to the seasonal changes. I don't know if you are observing or not. But that one is a wider topic. We will be coming for it maybe in the last stanza of the show. But it's something, of course, we feel we need to also give to the viewers because it is alarming in the country.
But the question, Benson, before we head in for that short commercial break is, are the people accepting the rains? In your own opinion?
That is the reason as to why we are saying that it
or others are accepting it in the other way around. We take a short commercial break. This is the KOKOLIRIKO live show with me, Farish Majid, together with Oracle Benson Pastore. When we bounce back into the final half, we are going to be looking at that discussion also to see how these changes in the weather, where we are seeing rains also today becoming rains. People utilizing the rains, are you using them productively, or you are using them productively in the other production means? That discussion will be coming later on. But we expect you to be using this for production, not for reproduction. We take a short commercial break. We bounce back shortly.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region. Kylian Mbappe! Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, a team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium, Channel 259 and Channel 246. Starting this August 15th. Subscribe to StarTimes Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. StarTimes Football and limited passion.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region. West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Kylian Mbappe! Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, a team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium Channel 259 and Channel 246 starting this August 15th. Subscribe to StarTimes Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. StarTimes Football and limited passion.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, Benson, the sun is already up as we didn't see him there, but somebody still will be on bed after this hour of the morning, wondering whether to go to work or still to sleep small. That is how usually laziness comes in. Laziness tells you, let me first sleep a bit. And with the rains, yet you could be investing millions just using that hole and on that piece of land that is currently sitting idle? Are people embracing the rains? Or others are looking at it also really as something very much bad, and they're using it perhaps for other things? Because I was able to read people's comments and I was able to interact with people about the current trend of rains. Others seem not to be in support of it. What do you think about that?
First, when you talk about the seasonal changes, of late it is in phases. When we are growing, I don't know if you have realized the seasons are changing each and every decade. Because in a decade there are 10 years. I've seen it, there are slight changes in seasons. When we are still teenagers growing, rain, the first rain used to drop around March there. That is when you will see people setting their first garden work. But of late, it is unpredictable. You will fail to predict when, of course, rain is going to be vivid. Because for you to start planning your garden work, rain, of course, will have to first stabilize. It has to be in a vivid way. You take a look at the last few years, let me say the last 3 to 5 years, it has been unbalancing and it has been unpredictable. Unlike those years when we are still boys, teenagers,
What does that
when
mean?
we are still learning how to dig. What picture are we trying to implement here?
Climate change.
Climate change is one thing which, of course, is making the seasons to change like this. People used to plant in phases. Some of the crops, they used to be planted twice in a year when it comes to the season of the rain. But because of late, rain drops are very late. Like this year, rain stabilized. It was in the middle of last June. That means the first phase of rainy season was died. It was a dead season. The first phase was a dead one, which starts from March up to around July there, because rain, it became vivid around June. Now people are now planning the second phase of that rainy season. Now this one brings us to the question: why has it changed? Why are we witnessing rapid changes in seasons, more especially in rainy season? We are trying to say that rainy season, which used to be twice, it is now once. The other phase has gone down. We are now remaining with one phase, which is the last one. Why is it happening? How can you plan yourself? Yes, you have talked about how people can be able to utilize the rain. Mostly in urban areas, people don't utilize rain for garden work. People normally utilize rain for water. But in villages, in rural areas, people cry for rain so much. And now you look at the way how, of course, it is raining nowadays. It's not all that much, and sometimes consecutively for a week, it cannot miss to rain. This one, of course, is also not favorable for garden work. Sometimes you see signing for a longer period of time. How can we be able to curb such kind of challenges is actually what we are trying to analyze here. In other words, in simple terms, in summary, rain doesn't balance. Also, the season of that sunshine is prolonged. What is happening and what can be done is what we are trying to...
You're talking about the issues of climate change. Today, many activists speak about it. It means we have to do something about it. First of all, the issue of cutting down trees, Benson, that is said to be one of the contributors to the climate change that we're seeing today. It means we need this form of practice. Many people are cutting down trees for other duties. It means still it is contributing. We have now got to know that. How can we leave that practice of depending on wood fuel? It means we need to embrace other forms of energy that would enable us to use electricity, gas, and other sources of energy other than depending on trees. And then secondly, with the increasing population base of people are cutting down trees to establish settlements. That is another risky also trend that we are likely to encounter in the coming years. So that is really where we're seeing climate change today becoming very much rampant. I really want to say my humble appeal would be that let's plant trees. Let's plant more trees, and these are those practices that also really hamper and also really affect the environment. And at the end of the day, we see the negative repercussions and the negative implications of what we are doing also really resulting in there. And that means for those farmers who are being used certain periods, definitely right now they are counting losses. Because our mothers may not be understanding the changes in the seasons. For them, they are saying, when Mbazia comes, I want to do this. That is what you usually do. They don't know even about the changes right now. So it is upon me and you to go back and train them, because usually for them, their mindset is that when this month reaches, they have to do something and also plant this and that. And at the end of the day, this is totally help them enable them feed their families. So I think let's use the rains properly. Yes, the rains are still there. We can still plant. I've seen my neighbors also doing a lot of modern work. And that means we can still do farming in any part of the country, depending also on the kind of land that you have. Today we have seen many people also planting, and that is really quite interesting. So with the rains, let's utilize these rains for active production, not for active reproduction, because when the weather changes like this, many times we hear people also picking up the phones and looking for those people whom they can call. That is not what we are telling you to do. We are telling you to use the right also channels, use the weather for the right duties, that is for active cultivation of land, and that would help us increase on the food security, and that would enable us increase on the food production, and thereafter we will be in position to solely avoid ourselves being hit by hunger. That is why we are seeing that happening.
And the Pharisee, you look at the way of how it is raining nowadays. It only favors very few crops. But for other crops, you may mention crops like tomatoes, you may talk about onions, and also cabbages. Mostly these short period crops, this rain is too much for them. Much as we are trying to look for a way of how we can be able to cover ourselves out of the poverty line. But this rain only favors very few crops. You may mention that's a cassava. You may mention for sweet potatoes. I've ever planted sweet potatoes. Once the rain is also too much like it is, it starts rotting. Sometimes it is also dangerous, I should say, just in summer for sweet potatoes. What we are trying to say is, once it starts to shine like this, the period of drought is always very long, prolonged drought. Once it also starts raining like this, it is also...
So it really, Benson, goes back to the extension workers and veterinary officers who are within the districts and the sub-county levels to go back and sensitize the communities about these changes and on what some of the crops that the people should be able to plant within this period in here, and that would help the farmers also really avoid encountering losses, because many of these farmers might have borrowed this money from the SACCOs and from also loan companies to also engage in farming, and that means if we subject to losses, it will be very much bad. And this goes to extension workers. I do know that very many are within our communities, others are within the village levels. Please, let's extend a hand to each and everyone out there, so that nobody is left out, and that would also enable them now get the kind of profits that they would be in position to also want to achieve at the end of the day. And now, Benson, the negative part of this rain is that it has affected our roads. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about our roads.
Some of the dilapidated houses, they also collapsing.
Yes, other houses also going down as well. Recently, I was in Yumbe. The road was really not good because of the rains, where it is a bit muddy. And you talk about Alurusa region, areas of Zombo, Pakwach, the roads are still not stable. And with the rains, where we are seeing the community members also really expressing concern. And in Madiokolo, we are also seeing the same also complaints arising, where community members and road users accessing, that is Awinga to Okuban market, main market, are accessing the political and also the technical leaders of also really, that's of Madisa. Now they're accusing them for not maintaining the roads. And that is where we also did see Madioko recently also making strides in or maintaining some of these roads. But Yumbe, according to locals, are not doing enough in terms of making sure they work on these roads. And now with the rains, many of these farmers and many of these traders who are moving from market to market are going to be facing the challenges of their vehicles getting stuck. And that is only going to be having an impact. That's on the produce that they're transporting, because if at all the car gets maybe stuck, in the process of pushing it, the tomatoes and onions are getting bad. So I think it is really quite time that we also utilize our roads very well. Let's avoid the practice of destroying the roads, because many of times people pull stand from the roadside are said to be the ones contributing to this also road destruction. Then it goes back to UNRA and also the other government agencies, most especially the local governments, to also really work on these roads also to make them accessible for vehicles to pass. Other than leaving it in the hands of the community members, who at the end of the day make accusations here and there, which will not really be very, very much well in there. What do you think about our roads? Let's first talk about our roads with the rains.
Normally, when it continues to rain like this, unstoppable, the roads becomes muddy, and obviously.
How is our road that connects Central Division to Ivory Division, most especially the road that leads to our home? How is it?
You know it very well.
How do you maybe explain that person who is watching us right now? First, paint that image. Let the person understand how the road.
First of all, if you look at these roads, they are really very, very alarming, and these are roads that are next to the Central Division. Some of them, they're even within Central Division. That means it's now the role of the government of Central Division to see that the actual work on these roads, because it doesn't paint the image of the city very well. Because when an area is called a city, everything in
but the
the
city
area.
is also Central Division alone. Ivory is also part of the city.
Ivory is part of the city, but I'm talking about the areas.
The urban areas.
That are next to the urban areas of the city.
Okay.
Some of the roads, of course, truly, they are very alarming.
They got 1 billion, but Benson, the challenge really that goes back to my attention is that 1 billion was given for working on these roads. And yes, indeed, we did see the local government is already trying its best to work on these roads, but now the roads are spoiling. What can we do to also avoid some of these challenges? Because we did see at least the grader passing over these roads.
In fact, the grader, the machines passing over the road, they have actually caused more damage than them being left like that. Because to me, I feel when they were tasked, I should say they were not worked on. When they were tasked by the machines,
they made them into gardens.
It caused more damage to the roads than them being left like that. So, first, also one interesting thing, because we are left with very few minutes, I want us to touch is the period of Senene is coming back. I don't know if you are aware.
Yes,
we are only left with some few days.
But we have let Benson, when you talk about this Senene period, you heard many people encountering losses. Last year, I know of colleagues who borrowed money to put the iron sheets, but the Senenes didn't come. This time round, are they coming? And where are the grasshoppers?
It is a funny business. So there are so many things. I think this is a broader topic. Since we are running out of time, can we keep this one for tomorrow?
I think let's keep it for tomorrow, and now let's look at what's happening in the world of sports. Because last night, of course, we also did see the night of men returning. What do I mean here? The Champions League was back, and tonight we're also going to be seeing still international games returning. That is still at the top level in there. But all in all, at the regional level, we are seeing the teams also strategizing and also really getting ready to also see they raise the points. And this is right from the regional league up to international level. What can you say about maybe the leagues in just some few minutes?
Exactly. The European night is back. One interesting thing is most of the giants, they are playing in European night. Matches, the weights are different. Others are playing, people say that in ladies' night, which is Europa and also Europa Conference, but others are playing in the top tier, the likes of Arsenal, Manchester City, Liverpool. But the good thing is they are all playing in the European League. And also, far as one thing which has impressed me so much is some of the new entries into Champions League, more especially Aston Villa. They are performing very well. They have played the 3 games, winning all of them. They have 9 points. They are overlapping on top. They are even ahead of the masters of UEFA Champions League. That's Real Madrid. Also, one interesting thing was them picking a win against one of the teams that are known of performing well when it comes to UEFA Champions League, beating Bayern Munich. Aston Villa actually is one team from England that is actually
raising the flag
of UEFA Champions League. I don't know which team you have so far watched, which is actually making you to feel that it is a European night. I don't know for you.
Of course, I still go back with the Spaniards. That is Real Madrid. That is the team. And really, Benson, on just a few days ago, was it yesterday, but one where we thought the team was going to be knocked out by Borussia Dortmund. After leading the team by 2-0, what we did see was indeed really what we call Champions League. And this is why we call that league the Champions League. From 2-0 down, we were able to see them beating the German side by 5-2, really, which was something many people never thought would happen. And what does it tell about the kind of Champions League that we have in this season?
Champions League is a league for champions.
And remember, Arsenal is still there. Should we say they are still part of the champions?
Yeah, they are still part of the champions until they will be eliminated.
Do you think they will be eliminated? Because many people are saying that this is the season now for Arsenal to win the Champions League.
Is it true? Do they have the quality? Winning Champions League doesn't come automatic. It's not like winning FA Cup. Where's the Carling Cup? You need a lot. This time I expect them to push very far. And also one funny thing is the system of playing the Champions League has changed. And it's still confusing people. we need more time. I think that one, of course, will have to be basically in whistle time.
Whistle
because
time,
we all have 5%
Okay.
for sports in this show.
Benson, our time is actually up, leaving the rest, that is to the whistle time, where they will have to come today and explain to the viewer what it means by these groups and what the stages also really mean and what you win. If you win, what it means, and the draws also really will be explained to the viewer best by the whistle time crew. Owen and Zaga together with Linda Susie. I will be here from 2 to 3 p.m. Thereafter, we shall be having the movie time from 3 to 5 p.m. where for those who love watching cinemas, because we have people who want to watch movies. Somebody can sit for 5 hours, 2 hours, the person is watching, keenly and following all the steps and following plot by plot. And that is really something which also I want to tell you that will be coming through from there. And thereafter, we shall be having Chuku Chuku from 5 to 7 p.m. Us and the Big Brother, Liz Honey and DJ Mosh. Of course, Us and the Big Brother is yet out. But of course, MC Sarge will be stepping in there to also let you know what is happening in the entertainment industry, where many people are now counting down the days. That is to a lot of activities, where the movie premiere also is set to also come back, where others are counting down the days to Harmonize coming also to Arua City. That means people are getting ready for a lot of also activities, and indeed December is going to be a marvelous season for them. And that is where we are still seeing them arranging, and more of that also what is happening. A spotlight will be coming through, that is on that program. Then the beautiful Komunina Christine will be coming through with the Nilecast. That is from 7 to 8 p.m. And then summarizing the day will be with one of the persons who speaks almost all the languages in northern Uganda. Kelele Show will be coming through also in there, where you're catered for in that mother language across the entire region in there. And that is how our programs for today will be running. And of course, after here, we are going to be having the Eolaza News team with Fete Manuel, who will be here also to let you know. And thereafter, we shall be having the Lugaramabi. Today, we also, I do understand the team will be here. And I do understand that also the Business Bank as well will be coming through. And many other interesting programs as we count down the days. After here, we shall be having also what we call the Northern Request Hour, the final edition for this week. It means that today is actually going to be a busy day in terms of programs, where you will be catered for in all the spares. That as well, I know many programs also coming down from Thursday to Friday. We have a number of programs still to cater for you in one way or the other, and all that only comes here on West Nile TV channel 477 as Star Times. And of course, we are also already a baby on one of the new platforms, which I will be breaking to you tomorrow. For those who have that decoder, definitely I will be letting you know where you can in person to access us. For now, we are out until tomorrow. My name is Faish Majid, and I've been together with
Oraku Benson Pastore.
We are out until tomorrow. Have a good day.